Come on, Livingston, we gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
This week on Talk Livi, I'm delighted to be joined by Livi manager Davie Martindale. Davie, have you managed to give yourself a wee break after what was quite a challenging season last year?
Yeah, I managed to get away. Me, Martha and Georgia got away to Portugal when it was on the green list. But to be fair, Martha sunbathes, Georgia goes in the pool, and I sit in the kind of lunch area with coffees under the shade on the laptop. So but that's kind of we eat together, we sleep together, we eat together, and then when we get outside, I go and work. Martha sunbathes and Georgia goes and jumps about the pool and makes friends. So we were very lucky. We got away. It was a wee bit of a rigmarole, to be honest. But we got away and we came back before it went. We were on holiday when it was getting put to amber, but
Aye.
we were always returning while it was still green. So it was not too bad, to be fair.
I'm glad you managed to get a wee break because we all know how much work you do in and about the club. But let's have a start by looking back at what was another successful season for the team. It goes without saying it was a season like no other though with COVID. How did that change you and Gary's preparations going into last season?
It never really changed it because you generally nothing really changed, albeit it was a wee bit more difficult to get trials in the building. Obviously, we were still in the EU at that point, so we were looking at foreign trials, but try to get them into the country, PCR tests, quarantines. That was really the only thing that changed in a recruitment point of view. The boys came back and they'd been working really hard during COVID because they'd got their off-season fitness schedule, so to speak. So, although it wasn't off-season, it was, I don't know how you work that, a broken season.
A break.
So, so the boys all came back in good spirits, and I think you had that initial bounce because they were just delighted to be back playing football, back in training, back to some kind of normality. The only real thing, friendly matches were extremely difficult and weird at the same time because the only teams that were back playing football was the Premier League teams. So you were looking to arrange friendlies with teams that you're going to play in 3 or 4 weeks' time. So that
was it a case of a bit of cat and mouse with these teams as well? You didn't almost want to give a bit too much away?
Both teams were doing that. You were doing as many changes as you could, and you weren't really showing your hand, changing formation. So it was a wee bit difficult, and it wasn't really competitive. I wouldn't have called it as competitive as what some of your friendly matches can be. So that was strange, playing teams in the Premier League in your friendly matches, no Betfred and stuff like that. So that was probably one of the, not the bigger obstacles, but one of the more stranger obstacles, that and having no fans in the stadium.
And there were several new arrivals last summer. Did COVID play a part in carrying maybe a bit of a larger squad than we have in previous seasons?
Yeah, it played a massive part because, let's be honest, no one knew it was going to be round the corner. Personally, I thought we'd have fans back in the stadium in January, and I had no idea how COVID was going to affect us from a playing point of view. We had our own in-house testing. We went to the extremes to get our own PCR machines in. We went to the own extremes to try and get them approved by the Scottish Government and the SFA. So there was a lot of work done in-house, and I think that set us up very, very well to try to keep COVID out the building, whereas other teams were external testing. They probably weren't catching COVID to the person who'd been in the building 36 to 48 hours, whereas we were catching COVID within 2 to 4 hours of the person being in the building. So it really, really helped us for that point of view. But carrying the bigger squad, because nobody knew how it was going to impact us. We knew it was going to impact, but we didn't know how much. So we tried to carry a bigger squad, to be honest.
There were plenty of positive performances at the start of the campaign, but maybe we weren't getting the results to match. How frustrating was that for yourself and Gary at the start of the season?
As a manager, assistant manager, however you want to put it, all you do is spend every minute of the day second guessing everything you do. That's all you do. Because let's be honest, we all knew the performances are there, but but we're not winning games of football. So it doesn't really matter if performances are there, does it? Let's be honest. Everybody can say you're playing well. So we were playing well. I was confident we had a better team than what we'd had in previous campaigns. It's kind of how I always look at the recruitment and the level of player. Are we better? Are we stronger? Yes, we are. But obviously other teams are doing the same thing. So I was quietly confident, but you second guess yourself sometimes, you know what I mean, as coaches and staff and players. We were all quite confident, but I think Gary leaving brought a wee bit of realism to the players, if I'm honest. That maybe gave them all of us a wee reality check. We had to do a wee bit more to start coming out on the other side of performances.
You touched on that. Obviously, Gary took the decision to leave the club. I know he was a popular figure with the players in and around the club as well. What was the mood like at that point? And what did you do to try and kind of spark what was a great turnaround in the end?
To be honest, how do I put this? I've been the assistant manager, but I've always probably played a bigger role than the assistant manager. So me and Gary worked hand in hand, and when Gary left, nothing really changed other than I was looking for an assistant manager at that point. So the staff, I've always said what we've tried to build at the club's a structure at the club that if I left or Gary left or Andy leaves or Cheb leaves or Colin leaves, it's not going to have a major impact on the team because the structure behind the scenes works very well and we're just a cog or a cog of many cogs. It's not all going to fall apart if one person leaves. Gary leaving probably... It was difficult because I always seen Gary leaving in a positive manner. Yeah. Managers, this is a problem. Managers, they leave football clubs, that's what happens. You either don't do well and you get sacked or you do really well and you move on. And that's always been one of the hurdles that stopped me probably taking the manager's job in the past, that and a couple of other things. But that was one of the main obstacles because I don't want to think about the day that I'm not at Livingston, either through a positive or a negative. So we all know managers leave football clubs. It's one position that always changes. Yeah. It's always going to change.
It's so like Gary the average cycle's like 2 years or something like that for a manager these days, isn't it? It's
ridiculous, but isn't it? Continuity for me in football is absolutely huge. But you don't get that time anymore. Social media doesn't allow managers time to build squads. And if you look at Steven Gerrard and Rangers, I think the Rangers board should be applauded because they've allowed Steven, maybe, let's say, 5-6 windows before he actually started having a major impact on his squad. Whereas I think there was calls before maybe the 5th or 6th window for Steven to go. He's not won a cup, he's not won the league and stuff like that. So I think you've got to applaud Rangers. And why I'm going down this route is they've allowed him the time and the continuity to build his squad. But I don't think there's a lot of other managers get that time and continuity, if I'm honest. And I think social media plays a massive part in that.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. You stepped in initially on an interim basis, and as I say, you hit the ground running, wins in the League Cup, progression in the League Cup, string of impressive wins, including away from home as well, which was a massive talking point for a couple of years. Was there anything you did to kind of spark that change in form, or was it just, as you say, just that with Gary moving on, it maybe just hit the players a little bit of reality check?
I think there was a few different things that happened at that point. I don't want to go into the financial side of stuff too much. COVID was playing a massive impact. But probably in hindsight, looking back, maybe with myself and Gary, there was a wee bit of, maybe I was doing a wee bit too much and maybe there was mixed messages. I don't know. I'm just trying to think outside the box, and maybe with Gary leaving, it allowed me then to send my message, but me and Gary worked very well together previously. Yeah. So I don't know. There's that many variables in football that if we all knew what made it tick, we probably no sitting at Livingston Football Club. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And you can see it with various managers over the years. There's a fine line between success and failure in football. So Gary leaving gave them probably as all a wee bit of a realism check. maybe gave us all a wee bit of boo up the bum, potentially. I was then able to go and probably enforce my own opinions a little bit stronger. Albeit Gary never stopped me doing that anyway, but maybe the signals to the player was a little bit clearer. And I brought a sports psychologist in. That was about the time Jags came in and started working with the boys. But I'd actually implemented that 4 weeks before Gary left. But maybe maybe Gary leaving gave us a wee percentage. Maybe me doing it on my own gave us a little bit more. Maybe Jags coming to fruition gave us that wee 1-2%. And then, maybe between all the different variables, there's a wee 5% swing that then takes you out on the other side of the fine margins that we talk about. I don't think there's a lot in games between winning games of football and losing games of football in the Premier League, if I'm honest. And the fine margins they can be very, very important come the end of the day.
All those little things can make that tiny difference, as you say. And it's well documented you've been offered the job before. What was it this time round that put your name forward for the manager's job, Davie?
I think I'd kind of flew below the parapet. There was stories, Davie Martindale's at Livingston, but we were in the Championship. And I just did my daughter wasn't even in this world when I got charged with my offence. My wife started a new life, a new job in Edinburgh. I'd moved to Edinburgh with the family and we kind of just went about our business. And I knew if I took the manager's job, all that would change, and it would be, at the time, it was always negative. It was really, really negative. Some of the stories, so I thought, you know what, it's not something I need in my life. But again, I was looking at the Scottish Premier League, never coached in it, never managed in it, and never played in it. And in fact, I don't know if I had the skill set to be the man that led the team into the Scottish Premier League. So I try and when I make a decision, is this what's right for Davie Martindale? Is this what's right for Livingston Football Club? It definitely might have been right for me, but I don't think it was the right thing for Livingston Football Club.
Yeah.
So obviously Kenny came in, and the rationale behind Kenny was I was getting someone, the club was getting someone who potentially could score 15 to 20 goals in the Premier League, hopefully, but had also spent the majority of his career in the Scottish Premier League.
Yeah.
So a large part of his career. So that was the rationale behind that. Kenny would be on the field. I'd be doing a lot of more of the dugout stuff.
Yeah.
And that was going to give me the experience while Kenny had the experience. So we'd be both a wee bit of learning off of one another, because Kenny hadn't been in the dugout and I hadn't been in the Premier League football park.
Yeah.
So obviously I don't think it worked. I think that was quite clear for the offset, and we'd asked Kenny to step back from it. But he was really, really positive in continuing to play football. So we decided to part ways. Then Holty'd been in for the job with Kenny, and I'd spent a lot of time with Holty, and I really, really liked Holty. But I'll go back to why I never took the job. I never had any experience of the Scottish Premier League. Holty did, but it was from many, many moons ago playing with Kilmarnock as a player, because Holty spent the majority of his career in England, and he spent a bit of his managerial career in Scotland, but he hadn't managed in the Premier League. But at that point, it felt fitting to go back to Holty. So got Holty in, had a chat, and we agreed that probably Holty would be the one to lead the club forward. So at that point, I don't know if you would have read it, but it was I went through a lot of negativity in the media at that point with Kenny leaving. I went through, luckily for me, Martha doesn't read a lot of social media and she doesn't read a lot of the papers. But I can just remember that for a 2-week spell, I got absolutely crucified. It was extremely negative. It never really had an impact in Martha's life because she never seen a lot of it. And football never played a massive part in my family's life because we'd flew below the radar in League One in the Championship, so you can get away with it to a certain degree. As soon as you hit the Premier League, it's different. It's a different level from exposure. And then, so that was one of the fundamentals that stopped me wanting to take the job as well, because of the negativity it would have brought to Livingston Football Club and my family. So directly I went through that, through other ways with Kenny leaving. I went through that anyway. So I can talk, can't I?
Go for it. Folk rather listen to you than me.
I know, but at that point, so one of the main obstacles to stop me taking the job was the negativity the media would have had on my family and Livingston Football Club. But when Holty came in, I had to go through that anyway because of Kenny leaving. So that was one of the obstacles that kind of fell off the radar at that point. And then by the time Holt's left, I'd probably been coaching in the Premier League for 2.5 years, something along the lines. And I knew my methods and my strategies and my processes were working because I'd been doing the recruitment at Livingston for the previous 5 years, let's say. And I'd probably been doing a lot of the coaching along with Holty and Hoppy at the club for the previous 5 years. So at that point, after being in the Premier League for 2.5 years, I kind of knew I was ready to be the focal point of Livingston Football Club. And fortunately for me, it coincided with going on an extremely good run, which I think helped force the media's hand to be positive. I think if that was a 14-game unbeaten run, this is just my thoughts, I think it would have been probably more of a negative experience than a positive experience. So does that make sense?
No, totally. And as you mentioned, you were officially appointed on the 21st of December. And as you mentioned, that incredible 14-game unbeaten run coincided with reaching the League Cup final, back-to-back Manager of the Month awards for yourself. You almost must have been thinking this managerial stuff was a piece of piss, Davie.
No, I wasn't thinking that. It was nice to see that what we, and I'm not saying me, what we had been doing at the club was working. Every year we continually progress. So I was confident we had a strong team. I was confident it was better than the previous season. And I was confident that it was going to come good. But again, we'll go back to fine lines in the Premier League. It doesn't take a lot to come out the wrong end of defeats. But then again, if you can get the processes in place, on the flip side, fine margins can win you games of football as well.
Yeah.
So the players they maybe bought into myself being the focal point at that point, because previously it was me and Gary. So maybe that just brought a wee bit more clarity to the changing room as well. I don't know. And if I did know, I wouldn't be probably be sitting here, because that 14-game unbeaten run would probably have been 28 games, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Well,
let's be honest, it's football.
Yeah,
it's football.
You're right.
Do you know what I mean? So can I put my finger on it? Probably not. But I'm one. I look back in what that group of players achieved, what we achieved as staff, and I think it's incredible.
It's probably never going to get done again at a football club like ourselves, that run of form that we had. But as you've kind of touched on already, with your appointment came a lot of media attention as well. Did you expect there to be as much coverage when you were in line to get the job? And how humbling was it to get the support that you received from some quite big names and things like that as well?
That was a big one for me. I'd always had a lot of support in and around football before, obviously, the Premier League. And what I mean by that is you can tell when you meet managers, you meet coaches, that whether they take to you or they don't take to you, or whether they maybe hold a grudge because you're an ex-offender, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? They judge a book by its cover. So in the footballing terms, I'd been to the big clubs, Hibs, Hearts, Rangers. We'd played Celtics, Celtic coach, but I dealt with Celtic as a club, dealt with Neil Lennon, dealt with like Brendan Rodgers the first year in the Premier League. So I'd always had a lot of support from footballing people, and even board members of other clubs. Had always, I think, went out their way maybe to make me feel welcome.
Yeah.
But hiya, Davie, how you doing? I'm going scouting games. They offer you to come into the boardroom. They don't have to do these things. So from a footballing perspective, I've always had that support, I think. I've always had that support, which is very humbling. From a supporters and fans of other clubs, supporters of Livingston Football Club in the media, that was probably more the humbling aspect of it. But when you strip it right back, generally fans are working class backgrounds, and they kind of probably could relate to me a lot more than maybe they could be other managers who's had very, very successful careers, but who maybe the normal football fan can't relate to as much as what they maybe could have related to me.
As we mentioned, you managed to guide the club to their first major cup final in 17 years. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be for the team on the day. How do you reflect on the occasion? Obviously, one aspect being it's a cup final and there was no fans there. But how do you reflect on kind of the build-up that week within the club and just the game in general?
It was brilliant because we'd had a lot of media interest, probably maybe 18 games before because of myself. We went in that 14-game unbeaten run, then we got beat off Dundee United, drew with St Mirren, can't remember who else was there, but it's roughly 17, 18 games. There'd been a lot of media attention around the club. One, because of myself taking the job or being the manager, and two, because of that great run the boys went on. So the media attention was just something that probably became fairly normal in and around the club at that point. It was a wee bit surreal taking Livingston to a cup final and there's no fans here.
Yeah.
And that was the gutting aspect of it. It was gutting because you know that it might be, hopefully it's not, but it could be another 15, 20 years before we get to a cup final. It might be 5 years, but you get where I'm going with it. A club of our size, so it was gutting for that point of view. We had a wee bit of misfortune as well, because for the cup final, I do believe if I had Kieran Brown or one of my signings that I'd made in the January window available, I think we could have probably had a different outcome.
Yeah.
Kieran, I don't think people understand how key a player Kieran was for us on and off the park.
Brilliant player. Brilliant in all three spells he was at the club as well.
It took him a wee while at the turn of the year to get going, to be honest, but when he got in the team, he was brilliant. And he was a big player on and off the park for me. And I had a very, very good relationship with Kieran. And we lost Kieran late on in the January window. We'd been told Kieran was going to be staying with Livingston. Neil Harris lost his job. Mick McCarthy's looked at Kieran, which he was well within his rights to do, and he'll play for me. So he's took Kieran back late on in the January window. I'd got Jackson Longridge, a player I'd been quite familiar with previously. I'd managed to get Jackson back in the building, but I'd also managed to sign a bit of height, left foot, left centre-half, left back, left centre-mid, and Jibril Diani.
Yeah, and then the issues with Diani and the Brexit stuff.
I think we were the first club in, don't quote me in this, Britain, but definitely Scotland, that was signing someone while we'd left Brexit, while we had left the European Union. Even the player coming through the airports weren't ready for foreign workers to come into Scotland. They were just putting them through the passenger gate, which caused a massive problem in its own right. So Jibril was probably 6 weeks behind the curve because of that.
Yeah.
Jackson picked up a knee injury, which then left me to try and come up with some sort of strategy to try and alienate Sean Rooney, because people laughed at it at the time. But for open play, there was two sides to that. For open play, I think Marvin Bartley stopped Rooney. But I also had to match Ali McCann's legs in midfield, which allowed me to bring Stephen Lawson back into the midfield area. And we had Holty, Pitts and Stephen Lawson, who brought great energy and legs to the midfield area. And no disrespect for Marv. Marv was more of a holding midfielder. So we alienated the threat for Sean Rooney and managed to get good legs into the midfield area, where I think the game was going to be lost or won, taking away set plays. We'd lost the 2 games previously to St Johnstone for set plays. One game, previously. The second game was the cup final to set plays. Massive part of the game. Sean Rooney goes on to win them the cup final against Hibs. Again, back post, open play, back post on Dostoy. Scores and wins the Scottish Cup. St Johnstone won the Scottish Cup, but you get where I'm going with that. And ironically, we lose for a set play when Marvin Bartley's not picking Sean Rooney up. And it's John Gaffer who's the best header of the ball at the club. So
is that the real reason John's away? Is that
Big John's away because he never matched Big Rooney. But, so would I have done it differently? Probably not. But if I had Kieran Brown playing, I think that might have been a wee bit different, to be honest. We were a wee bit less physical than what we've been in previous years. But Jackson's really good in the air, but he's no 6'2". Do you know what I mean? And you can put Jackson up against anybody, but if they're 6'3" and they're great in the air, the chances of you winning that header are slim to none.
Yeah, very difficult.
So, I think the final was very much like the semi-final. We scored first and then we were hard to beat. St Johnstone scored first, and they've done it on countless occasions. They are extremely difficult to beat. They put 10 men behind the ball and say, come and beat me.
It's one of those games, isn't it, where if that tactical tweet you made with obviously Marvin Rooney, we go and win the game 1-0, it's genius. And then obviously you lose the game and everyone wants to pick up on it.
Of course they do. But I think everybody, if you really sit and think about it, Steve Lawson, in the middle of midfield was not a bad option. Like, Steve was a good midfielder on his day. Steve had great legs and technical ability, and he was tenacious. And then you look at, I remember speaking to Foxy, because Foxy at that point, at the end of the season, Foxy was going into Hibs. I'd already spoke to Foxy about going in. And I remember speaking to Foxy saying, you need to nullify Sean Rooney. You need to nullify Sean Rooney. So, obviously Hibs got bit in the bum by the same one that bit them on the bum in the semi-final, because I think Sean Rooney scores the second goal in the semi-final against Hibs for a fantastic header for open play. And if you look back from January onwards, the amount of goals that boy scored for set plays is incredible.
Yeah, he's a massive threat. I actually think he was unlucky not to be kind of in the counting for the Euros squad. But
again, he's a good big player. But if you look at even the set plays he's not scored, I think teams are spending a lot of energy and time on Sean Rooney not scoring. That opens it up for a Jason Kerr, a Liam Gordon, or a Xander Clark. You know what I mean? But because you're that worried about Big Rooney in the back three, that I think it opens it up for all the players.
And despite a slight downturn in results at the end of the season, we managed to secure back-to-back top six finishes for the first time in the club's history. Overall, Davie, how do you reflect on last season? I know you kind of described it as almost in thirds the season, didn't you?
It was first start of the season, the first third, it was frustrating. But within the building, we knew we would get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The mid third, very, very good, excellent, brilliant, and it was proud to be a part of it. And the last third was frustrating, disappointing. But I can remember it was a wee bit of a push trying to get in the top six.
Yeah. And
I think that played a wee bit, and I don't think we suddenly, you sit back and it's all in hindsight, and we're all good football managers in hindsight, let's be honest. But looking at it, I think the pressure of losing the cup final and trying to get top six did play a part in players' minds, because that was a part of football. We've always been the underdog. Always been the underdog. And see, when you lose a game of football and you're the underdog, I think it's quite easy to put it to bed.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to put it to bed and move on to the next game. We suddenly became a top six team after this amazing run we went on, and teams were starting to play us differently. Yeah. We hadn't changed our style of play, because we were still playing as the underdog, so to speak. So teams started approaching us very differently. Just Big Marv came in. Teams have started approaching us very differently. So we were then suddenly going into games as the favourites, losing that game of football. And I think psychologically it had a bigger impact on the players than what I gave it credit for. Mm-hmm. And maybe I was coming into training on Monday morning disappointed, a wee bit more negative, gutted, frustrated. But you've got to strip the season back. We finished sixth and we won 12 games of football. 12 games of football we won and 5 draws. Now, see, as a Livingston supporter, we're going to potentially, hopefully win 12 games of football this year again. See, when you actually look over it, it's 38 league games. I think we've got to put it into perspective. We're going to lose more games of football than we win, but it's how we respond to getting beat. For me, that's a big one, eh? So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I tried to change the way we played slightly towards maybe the last 10 games of the season.
Yeah.
I secured top six, and when you get into the top six, we were probably the least favoured team in the top six, us and St Johnstone. And you're going to lose games of football, very, very difficult. But did we play well in the Aberdeen games? I think we did. I think we done more. We should have probably got more out of it. Played Celtic again, probably should have got more out of the game. The Rangers game, was that the 3-0 game? Was the last game of the season? Was it?
Aye, last home game. Aye. And I actually think that's probably the best we played against Rangers all season as well.
For me, again, I don't think it was a 3-0 game. It was a 3-0 game. I'm not saying it wasn't. Aye. But overall performance, was I fairly happy with how the game went? I think I was disappointed in the result, but for performance-wise. And then we go to St Johnstone, and probably we're the better team. Jays has a fantastic opportunity and hits it straight at Xander. We could be sitting here in Europe. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we would have got Europe through the SFA and UEFA, to be honest. So sometimes I think that's a wee bit of a blessing in disguise, because it's another major negative you would have had to deal with in the back of a positive. Yep. So again, we won 12 games of football, and I keep saying it, I say to the media broadcasters every week, take every game in isolation. We might go and lose 6 games of football on the bounce, but on the other hand, we might go and win the next 4.
Yeah.
So take it in isolation. But that's kind of how I summed up the season, to be honest. But I do think there was big psychological swings from being the underdog to probably going into games as the favourites, and teams started to set up differently against us. They started saying, come and beat us.
Well, actually, you mentioned Marv coming in, and I mind Marv did something for it was the 9 on BBC, and they had someone from each of the semi-finals, and they asked who do you want to avoid in the final, and they all said Livingston. And it's not often you'd hear something like that because of the run of form we were on, as you mentioned, kind of becoming that favourite tag almost in game.
It's difficult. It's difficult because the mindset in the building's changing. The mindset of other teams are changing, and we've got to adapt. We can't keep doing the same things. I'm one of these, I'm a great believer, and you keep doing the same things, you're not going to get different results. So we have to change. So I do believe we were going through a transitional phase as well at that point, because I'm going to teams and they're just sitting in and saying, come and beat us.
Yeah.
We're like, we're not used to this. You're meant to come and beat us. So I had to be a wee bit more creative, and I had to change the shape and try and find ways to win games of football. When I say I mean we did, because we do it as a team. And I think you'll probably see, I'm not going to say a different style of play, but there's probably more strengths to our bow this season, where I think we've got more ways to go and win games of football. And that's maybe where if a team sits in and says, come and beat us, I think we've got the squad and we've got the style of play to try and do that. But I also think we've got the squad and the style of play to say to other teams, come and beat us. So I think we're probably more well equipped. But again, that's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah, and as happens seemingly every year at Livi, there's been a lot of movement in both the squad, but also the coaching staff for the first time in a little while as well. Obviously, Foxy moved on, Tony Caig's moved on as well. Marvin's taken up the assistant's job, Stuart Garden's come in, goalkeeper coach, and Dougie Emery's also joined the backroom staff as well. How well have all of them settled into the new roles?
I can't believe I've not had another coach in the building before now. And what I mean by that is it was me and Hoppy done absolutely everything. From a footballing perspective, I've got great staff, Colin, Cheb and Andy, great behind the scenes, fantastic. Couldn't ask for better staff, but on the park, it was me and Hoppy. For large spells, when Hoppy left before Kenny came in, it was Davie Martindale. And then when Gary left, it was Davie Martindale. So it was me and Gary, and there's always just been the two of us and a goalie coach. But the goalie coach and the first team coaching is kind of a little bit different. They do their own thing, and then they'll bounce in with us. But I've brought Dougie in now, and I've got me, Marv and Dougie, and do you know what? And I don't mean this against anybody that's been in the building previously, because I think we've done fantastic. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant to have Marv and Dougie. I feel that as I'll say me personally now, I feel more well equipped to deal with the rigours of the Premier League and what I have done in previous season, just by having another coach in the building, just to help you out, just to really help you out. Marv's been brilliant. I've had a great relationship with Marv for day one he came in this building. Obviously, I dealt with the player recruitment. It was me to meet Marv, it was me to sign Marv. And I think everybody can probably hand in heart say he's been unbelievable for us as a captain, as a leader, not just a captain on the field, as a leader off the field.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant guy. He's a brilliant guy. I'm humbled that he chose to work. He wanted to work with me, because let's be honest, he might have not. He might have wanted to keep playing and choose to go elsewhere. So Mars, I offered him the job and he's took it. And then we've got Dougie in and Stuart, he's come in, and it's been refreshing in the backroom terms.
Yeah.
It's been really refreshing, and I think the boys are really, really buying into it. And I just know the processes in place and the structure in place at the club are probably been the best it's ever been at the club since my term in the club, and it's the best it's ever been. So we're in a really, really good place for a coaching point of view, and you'll hopefully we'll start seeing that impact on the field very soon.
However, the players going to lose a bit of respect for them after they both got megged in the boxes the other day.
Well, see what's happened is we're trying to get the academy up and running. So obviously finances they're always really tight at the club. I've been climbing the stand, putting GoPros up, putting SD cards in and all this kind of thing. So part of the Club Academy Scotland is every single game has to get recorded. So you've got to be spending, let's say, £50-60 a game throughout all these age groups to get it recorded. So we've got this camera system in at the club now. I'm not going to tell you the name of it in case anybody else listens to this and tries to do it. But we've got this camera system in at the club. Me and John, the maintenance man, put it up in the summer. Got it all networked up. We've had to increase the broadband bandwidth just to bring it into the club. So every single session at the club is online. Now, you can zoom in, change the angles. It's brilliant. So anything that happens at the club, I make sure we get it clipped and put in social media. only my good stuff, none of my negative stuff goes up. But all Marv's good stuff, I don't put up. And all these negative stuff, I make sure I put it up on social media.
I take it both Marv was blaming the sickness bug and Dougie was blaming the back was still feeling out a wee
Marv's
bit.
still coming out with COVID. Jeez, Marv will hit us with COVID for the next 2 years, I think.
I wouldn't expect anything less than that.
Him and Dougie have been honestly brilliant, and Stuart, really good. We've expanded the coaching staff at the club. Like Kagi was only in part-time. Now Stuart is in full-time. I can see a massive difference, and we've never really had the resources before to do that. So, I'm really looking forward to this season, to be honest. Really looking forward to it. And the coaches training has played a massive part in my mindset with the internally and the players.
As I mentioned, there's obviously been the upheaval with the backroom team, but there's also been a number of players moving on and a number coming in as well. Kind of most notable ones leaving the building, like Robbo, Alan Lithgow, John and Jet as well. Was a lot of this down to budget constraints because of the last year with COVID, no fans, or did you just feel there was a bit of a need to maybe freshen things up a little bit?
No, I think everybody half knows the story with Robbo, so that was something that would I like to keep Robbo. Of course I would have. So that's something that couldn't happen. Let's call it politics. And we'll move on. But I'd like to keep Robbo, but I couldn't. Jet was always going to move on, and I had a gentleman's agreement with Jet that if somebody came in out with the champion England and Scotland, he could move on for nothing. So Aberdeen came in for Jet, and Jet said, "Will it help you, Davie?" I said, "That'll help the club massively, Jet." So Jet, fair play to the big man. It's got to suit him as well, but he's decided to go to Aberdeen. I know he had offers to go abroad and substantially more money than what Aberdeen were going to pay him. But Jet understood what we'd done for him as a club, but it also allows him to get back home in England to see his kid. So that was good for him, and obviously he picks up a decent salary at Aberdeen. And John, I was lucky to get last year out of John, to be honest. John was a lot, like what people don't see, the fans will not really recognise, is with a lot of English players and a lot of foreign players, and their girlfriends or wives were stuck in their houses constantly. They just moved up to Scotland, maybe spent 6 months, 7 months in Scotland before COVID hit. And then COVID hit. They couldn't get back home to see their families. They weren't working, or they were working from home. They had no social life. John, or use John as an example, John was in the club 8-9 hours a day, 6 days a week. So we were lucky to get that extra year out of John. And again, I had a gentleman's agreement. Look, John, I know I'm going to invoke the 3rd year clause. I can't let you move on for the club for nothing, John, but me and you'll sort this between us. You have my word in that we'll sort this between us. And fortunately, we got that sorted. So, and I think there was a lot of other players at the club. I think we needed a wee freshen up, if I'm honest. A wee freshen up. If you look at the squad, Alan, the big Lithgow had been fantastic for us, but he'd probably been injured for 18 months. Yeah. I think it was fair to say at Alan's age, and probably wasn't going to play a lot of football in the Premier League. So that was the hardest decision from my point of view, to be honest. That was one of the biggest ones for me, because it was myself and Hoppy that brought Alan in. So that was difficult. But the rest of them, Steve and that, Steve was looking to move back home. Steve was probably trying to get back home probably the year before. Yeah. His girlfriend found it difficult. Like, even the international breaks, he couldn't travel back to France because of quarantine and stuff like that. So we moved a lot of boys on. There was a big transitional period at the club, but then it allowed the space for the other boys who'd been in at the club previously to go and hopefully flourish this year and bring a lot of new players in.
And as you mentioned, there's several new faces at the club. As you say, freshened it up a wee bit. A lot of kind of youthful looking squad as well this year, I would say. Yeah. Are there any players that you think the fans are going to be really excited to see a lot of this season?
For me, I think Brucey's a big one for me. His movement and his finishing. I think Brucey's got a big career ahead of him. young Adam Lewis still getting to grips, picking up wee niggles and knocks now. He's probably not as fit as he should be because he missed a bit of pre-season. He's never really had a couple of good weeks training.
Right.
Wee Adam's really exciting. Fantastic left foot. James Penrice you're all aware of, but James for me is one of these boys. I've got James in a long-term contract and he can play a variety of positions for me. I can trust him. And as a coach, that's all you're wanting out your players. Can you trust them? And I can definitely trust them. So I think there's a lot of growth. Young Ben Williamson's obviously a Rangers player, but there's a lot of growth in Ben as well. Brought Jack Hamilton back into the first team squad. Jack was a Livingston player, always has been, but Jack was what I termed as a kid at the club. He never had a first team squad number, and he changed in a different changing room. Well, we've all been changing in different changing rooms anyway, but in a normal season, Jack would change in with the younger players who weren't what you would typically call a first team player.
Yeah.
Now Jack Hamilton stepped up into the first team environment. He's become a first team player, got a new squad number. So there's a lot of young players in the squad, and you look at VJ's Kabaya as well, to be honest. We've got a young squad. There's probably 4 or 5 players there I've just spoke about that are all around 20, 21 year old. Brought in young Harrison Clark from non-league football, like grassroots football in England, who's doing extremely well in the Scottish Championship. I'm looking through the squad list here now. Big Oberlai, I think there's a lot of growth in Big Isle. A lot of growth. I'm looking forward to seeing Jacko. I know what I can get out Jacko. Andrew Shinney's kind of a marquee signing. Going to bring a wee bit of experience and a wee bit of technical nous to the squad. Like a lot of the boys, the younger boys, we spend a lot of time coaching them day in, day out, and it's mentally exhausting at times. Whereas Andrew, and I never signed him for this reason, but there's not a lot of coaching in him. Andrew knows the game. He knows the game inside out. So he brings a different aspect in an offensive area, which is nice. It's nice for a coach's point of view because I think the young boys will look up to him as well. But again, we need to get Andrew up to speed. So, and I think Max, there was a big fight on last year for Max and Robbie. I know a lot of the fans always chose Max, but football, what you see in the football park isn't always what I can pick. I've got to give everybody at this club a way in the team and a way out the team. And I think Max will be the first to hold his hand up now, especially. Probably never lived his life correctly away from the football club last year. The penny seems to have dropped with the big man, and I swear to God, I'm excited. I'm excited with what Max can bring to a squad. I've seen a different goalkeeper this year. He's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Now Daniel's came in. Daniel came in to fight with Max to be the number one.
Yeah.
And Daniel's got all the tools to do that. But Daniel, for the first 2 weeks, got hit with COVID. So he missed Spain, which gave Max the upper hand, and Max has kept the jersey ever since. Now that wee fight with Daniel as well probably kicked Max's performance on, but I'll be honest, I think I've got 2 number ones this year, but I think what I'm seeing from Max Stryjek at this point in time, I'm excited what he can bring to the squad this year. Really excited to see what Max can bring.
As you say, that one caused a lot of debate amongst fans last year, the Max Robbie debate.
It's the Max Robbie, and it always is, and I understand why they, as a first team manager, do I really want to be changing my goalkeepers?
No.
I don't. But I'm a great believer in there's got to be a way in and a way out of the team. Robbie is probably one of the most professional football players I have ever met in my 8 years at Livingston. And when you've maybe, let's say, and I'll not use Max here, let's say we've not got a player who's maybe been as not professional.
Yeah.
I think it's important to the group that they understand what you do away from the club is just as importantly what you do at the club. And there's got to be a way in and a way out of the team. And I'm a big believer in that. And that's maybe why, from a goalkeeping aspect, maybe Max has kicked on a wee bit this year because he knows if he becomes complacent, he'll find himself not playing.
And the club managed to get away, you touched on it just there, managed to get away to Marbella for some warm weather training. With the turnover of players and obviously the staff as well at the club, was it good to get away to kind of integrate and almost be stuck in each other's pockets for a few days? Originally,
because this was booked later on in the last season, I was worried about it through COVID. But as time grew closer, I actually realised it would be better for all us to be away in a bubble, away for families and girlfriends and wives, because with society, I've seen it massively now. With society being opened up, COVID's everywhere. It's every a bit. I remember this time last year, I knew about 2 people that had COVID. I read it on the news, but I didn't know anybody that had COVID because nobody was allowed out their house. Whereas this year, I don't know anybody that's not had COVID. Like, that's the difference. So we're getting away to Spain. It allowed us, we were testing every day, but we had a separate part of the hotel. And all we done was train and played, the net. And it actually contained COVID far better than what I think it would have done if we'd stayed in Livingston, with everybody going back, their kids are at school, their wives are all back to work, we're all out shopping, we're going out for meals. So it actually helped us for that wee week, but it helped gel a group of players that didn't really know each other that well. It helped gel them far quicker. And that was one of the things I missed last year, I must admit. I didn't know I'd missed it, but I think, again, that potentially maybe had a wee impact on how we started the season as well. I don't know, I'm just looking, in hindsight, things that you've done different from the previous season. So I was delighted to get away, but ironically, 2 of the players that was going to be the new ones, Daniel Barden and Tom Parts, got COVID and couldn't come away for us. But it was good, even for a squad point of view, Dougie, Marv and Stewart integrated into the staff point of view, and there was probably 6 to 8 players that hadn't been at Livingston previously that took part in that pre-season camp, which again, it builds relationships far quicker than what they do on a day-to-day basis in the club.
And we've managed to progress from our League Cup group, despite, as you say, kind of these issues we've had with COVID, and we've had some decent results in pre-season as well. How are you feeling? Kind of, obviously, we've started the league campaign now, but how are you feeling looking ahead to the Premiership campaign this year?
Probably feeling the same as you, Euan. Apprehensive. Let's be honest, let's be honest, any of us at this point in time know how the season's going to go. We're all sat. I don't know. Celtic are going to do well. I think Rangers are going to be a team to beat, right? See out with that, I think Aberdeen and Hibs will do quite well. Do any of us really know how the rest of it's going to pan out?
Absolutely not, no.
We don't because there's hardly anything between the teams. Budget-wise, yes, there's a big gap, but footballing-wise, there's not a lot between the teams. So I'm apprehensive. Am I confident? Yes, I'm confident. But I'm apprehensive like anybody else. But in a good way. And a good way, I'm looking forward to the season. I think the boys have started the season. Pre-season over in Spain was brilliant. Honestly, they were fantastic. I was really, really happy with the performances. Came back, Brecon and the friendlies we played, really, really happy with how we moved the ball with rotations and how we played. Brecon, a wee bit different. The grass was quite long. It was sticky, but again, it was a 3-0 victory. And then COVID kind of really had a massive impact. As at this time, who's me and the goalie coach in here again, because Marv was off. Dookie done his back. Marv got COVID. There was a sickness bug that hit the kids. The young players all stay in the same house. And there was a sickness bug, and they were coming in and they were white, and we'd been testing them for COVID, and they were passing their tests. So we had to isolate them. So it was a lot of, I'm not going to use it as an excuse, but it was difficult. We Sibs has got asthma anyway, and I think he struggled to come back from COVID a lot more than what maybe Jason Holt did. And I've seen it having a longer effect on players. Like last year when they did have COVID, they were kind of quite back and ready to go. Or they were in their houses saying, I feel okay. Not one person said that to me this season. Not one. I think from experience, if you've had the double vaccination, you recover quite quick. Singles a wee bit more longevity to it. If you've not had any vaccination, they really, really struggle. Norwich made us probably do a lot more medical checks than what we had to do on Daniel before they allowed him back in to be. He was allowed to sit on the bench, but he couldn't train. So Daniel, again, probably missed 4 weeks through COVID, and the protocols in place from Norwich after you return from COVID. What was the question there, Euan?
Just about the League Cup group and obviously pre-season games as well.
It was really difficult. Me and Stuart were only two in a match day. I was taking the team talk, running out, doing the warm-up, running back in, taking the team talk, and then going back out and coaching the team. I was drained, absolutely drained. This is incredible. So I think we're now in a good place. But the League Cup section, look, see the objective, just get through the League Cup section. And see if we'd won the League Cup section and we were seeded, you probably wouldn't have moaned too much with a St Mirren, would you? A St Mirren at home. So, horses for courses, we're there. It'll be a tough game, but it's a half-decent draw for both teams. Jim will be coming here, hope me, think he could beat us, and we'll be going into the game thinking we can beat St Mirren.
You look at some of the teams in the League Cup that had to forfeit games because of COVID issues. I think it's actually a miracle we managed to make it through all 4 games.
You know what? I was going to forfeit the Alloa game. I had it in my head. I was going to forfeit the Alloa game, and I went, don't, because you might need a point or something along these lines. In hindsight, we lost the game and had no points. I should have forfeited it. But again, it's hindsight.
Yeah.
That's all it is hindsight. That day, I remember, I shut the club Tuesday, 3 o'clock. I shut the club, sent everybody home, and we met at the ground at Alloa. No buses, no pre-match, nothing. These are the things that people don't probably see, because I was scared to answer my phone that week. Every time my phone went, it was somebody telling me they had COVID or track and trace. Honestly, oh my God. Shut the club down for the 4 days. Got into the Alloa game, really struggled in that in spells, but I don't think we deserve to lose that game, if I'm honest. I don't think it's a penalty. Never in a million years.
Nah, I don't think it was.
And we probably had 2 or 3 offsides where we had the ball in the net that weren't offside. But anyway, I don't think we deserve to lose that game. So, and we came back to the Rafe game. The Rafe game, and Brucey decides to hit the keeper for 2 yards. Make sure that's in it so he listens to that.
Oh, don't worry. I'll keep that in. But as you may, it doesn't get much tougher than a game at Ibrox on the opening day to a team that's just gone through a league campaign unbeaten. How did you feel after the opening day defeat over at Ibrox?
I'll tell you how I felt before it. Right, I'm thinking that's 4 years in the Premier League, and we've been away from home 3 times in an opener, twice against the league champions. I think there's a conspiracy theory to try and get Plastic Parks out of the league. That's what I think.
I agree with you. I definitely think there's a conspiracy about it.
Tell you, I'm like, how are we? Well, we played his first 6 games as the top 4 for last year. Rangers away, league champions. Flag Day, although it wasn't Flag Day, but it was Flag Day. And 3 times we've been away from home in the last 4 opening games of the season. I don't know. Sometimes you just feel as a wee clubby, you think everybody's against you, don't you?
We've had that at Livi for a number of years. We've got used to it, I think, as fans.
Felt it. I think there's dark forces against us. We get finished 5th in the league and we don't make a single penny for finishing top 6 in crowds. That's where you make the money, not the league money. You make it on the crowds that attracts. 2 years in a row and get a cup final, don't make an extra penny because there's no crowds. So anyway, Rangers away, start the game, work on it. Set plays, you need to be banging it and we lose a set play. Cheap goal. Raging, gutted, but fuming, absolutely fuming. So preventable. Rangers, their patterns of play and their rotations are very, very good. And the speed of their transitions are brilliant. They're brilliant at it. They've got players that look after the football. We get to grips with it after probably 15, 20 minutes. And I think we're quite comfortable. We don't look like scoring, but you don't go to Ibrox and look like scoring. There's no many teams do. We're quite comfortable. Get them in at half time, and then for another 25 minutes, look fairly comfortable in the game. I think 1-0 here. We have a couple of wee half chances, nothing special. Ayo had a header in the first half, and then Jack Hamilton and wee Jays in the second half probably could do a wee bit better with their chances. Jack pulls a shot by, and wee Jays, I'm wanting him to crack that with his right foot, but he does a wee reverse pass to Jack. You remember that one?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we've not caused any problems, but it's 1-0 and we're in the game. And you know yourself, that's what you want to do at Ibrox. So fairly happy with the performance up to that point, albeit the set play left me raging. But then they score the second, Scotty Wright outside his right foot, and you're like, incredible finish. But for where we were, we knew it was a good finish, but I didn't quite understand how good a finish it was to looking it back. Because we 2 players go and shut him down. We're not a million miles away from stopping the ball, and he puts it through the middle of the 2 of them with an outside his right foot into the side net. Max, there's no chance. You're 2-0 down, but at that stage in the game, you're going, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, and we'll still have a wee go here. And then wee Jays goes off injured, and I think we play 15 minutes with 10 men. And I think when we're down to 10 men, they absolutely batter us. It's an absolute onslaught, let's be honest. But it's hard enough at Ibrox with 11 men, never mind 10 men. So take the set play out, and I know you can't take the set play out the performance, but take the set play I can fix. I can fix a set play fairly easy. I can fix it. For open play for the first 75 minutes, was I quite happy with how we performed? I think I was. I don't think that we gave them too many great goal scoring chances. Yeah. So I was fairly happy with that. And I think I've got to, I speak to the boys about it. Can we fix that? Can we fix that? Yes. Can we do that better? Can we do that better? Yeah, we all know we can. So overall, I think the papers picked me up wrong, or they chose to pick me up wrong. I think 3-0 flattered Rangers. I'm not saying we deserved anything out of the game. I don't think we deserved anything out of the game. But I think they score a set play, fair play to them. They score a worldie with the second goal, and they score the third and we're down to 10 men. And if you look at the set play, it's debatable if there's an offside in there as well. But you don't get the wee fine details when you go away to the Old Firm away from home. It's kind of what I mean. I don't think we deserve to take it into the game. But overall, did I think it was a 3-0 game? Probably no. But again, go back to fine lines, don't you? Fine margins of football.
And lastly, Davie, how good has it been after a year with no fans? How good has it been to have fans back in the grounds recently? How big a difference has that made for the players as well?
It's huge. I think it was going to 23,000 at Ibrox. It was brilliant. It was very, very good. Been a wee bit disappointed with our season ticket sales, if I'm honest. I think I just love to get up to 1,000. I think we're sitting at something like 750, and I think for a team that's playing the Premier League and competitive in the Premier League, I think that's fair to say. We're competitive. I just think we deserve a wee bit more. Do you know?
Nah, totally. I can't understand why folk won't seem to go out and support the team. It's so frustrating as a fan when the team's doing everything they can on the park.
I'm not having a dig at fans, 100% not having a dig at fans, because usually the guys that are buying the season ticket. But I can't get my head around it. Why are we not sitting there? I'm looking today, and nothing against Ayr United. It just popped up on my Twitter. 1,000 season tickets sold. Rafe Rovers. I'm going, how can you get that? Like, what's wrong? So I'm delighted that the fans are back in the stadium. And let's be honest, we have got a passionate, although it might be a 750, 800, they're very passionate. They're very passionate. And when we're winning games of football, it's a fantastic place to be, isn't it? When we're punching above our weight, it's brilliant. So I'm delighted to see the fans back. I just go and tell your next door neighbour, go and tell your auntie, your uncle, or whatever it is, your cousins, go and try and get them to buy a season ticket. Go and try and get them to buy a season ticket. Hopefully Monday we're back to no social. Well, we are back to, so I think we're 5,000. So we'll get the 10,000 in the bigger games, no problem at all. And we can start, Dave Black and Derek White, and we'll start getting the kids back into the stadium, start getting 300-400 school tickets back out there, start getting them, because before COVID hit, I don't know if you'd noticed, Euan, we'd started bringing these kids back into the stadium.
Aye, they were down kind of section A at the end of the stand.
A1, I think we were. And we were getting 200-300 kids in for Muirstone United, East Calder, Mid Calder, Colts, the high schools, the local primary schools. But again, takes up a lot of resources to do that. But hopefully that's something we can put back in place and just get, I think the main stand holds 2,300, probably a little bit less than that now with the media boxes and stuff like that being in there. So it would be fantastic if we could just get a season ticket numbers up to 1,000, 1,200, and then maybe supplement that with 400-500 school tickets getting it. What a fantastic place it would be. Just being able to get the stand up to that.
Couldn't agree more. If you look back at the playoff games where the stand was full, unbelievable atmosphere, and some of the bigger games as well. Obviously the Rangers win and the Celtic win and stuff like that as well.
I think we've just got to accept that maybe some of our crowds have probably we've got a bigger walk up, because it maybe is your Rangers, your Celtic, your Hearts Hibs supporter who they're maybe playing on the Sunday who'll come along to us on the Saturday. So I think we've just got to accept that, but it'd be brilliant if we could just get another up to around 1,000 season. My first year here, we were 1,200 season ticket holders because we were in the Championship with Rangers, Hearts and Hibs. We're in the Premier League now with Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, Celtic, Aberdeen. is incredible. So, and the 2 Dundee clubs. So it's been brilliant having fans back. A wee bit disappointing on the numbers, but that is definitely no I did get the boys, the fans that have bought season ticket sales.
Well, Davie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It goes without saying, all of us on the podcast wish you, the staff, and the players the best of luck for the new season.
Thanks very much, Euan. Thanks very much. And nice to see you back.
A love will never die. West Lothian, West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ammonvale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ammonvale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the